Okay, I'm recording this video by request from one of my investors, and I love it when you guys give me feedback. Hey, James, I'd like for you to talk more about whatever topic. While I was in La Jolla, California this year, I met with 20 plus investors. It was a great time, and I learned not to do any more events in La Jolla because, on average, people drove an hour and a half to come see us, and that's just, I'm very humbled and honored that you guys would come out and see us. Many of you have already bought properties. Um, but the talk they wanted me to give on video is about the index card. The index card, what is that? So it's real simple. So on one side of the index card, I have my 10-year goals. On the other side of the index card, I have defined my ideal investment. This is breaking it down to where it's so simple that I know what my next investment property is going to look like. And I know why we're giving up maybe that big family vacation to Hawaii or the boat, all of these liabilities that are fun, but they don't really create generational wealth. They don't make a big impact on my children's future, on my retirement. I carry it around with me everywhere. This card is very old. You can see how worn it is. This is also where I shave and brush my teeth, so I have to see it daily. Every time I reach into my wallet to buy something, there it is. And so it's breaking it down to the basic. Number one, a lot of my investors have never defined what their ideal investment is. Like, well, kind of shop around. That one looks good. That one looks good. Hey, let's jump on a call with James and his team, talk it through. I guess I'll go through with that one. And I never really sat down and really put together a game plan. Well, this is the beginning of the game plan that I would like to work with you guys on so that my team will know how to best serve you. It's not my job to say, here's your game plan. Here's the house you should buy. You'll never hear that from me and my team. We are here to serve you. So we go out, we find the properties, we bring them to 2020 standards through renovation. We have in-house property management that takes care of that property for you for years to come. But it's your job to tell us, this is the type of property I'm looking for. This is the neighborhood I'd like to have. And of course, with our guidance, we can help you get there. So let's start this exercise. I've got a little slideshow here. So you start with a 3x5 index card. Why a 3x5 index card and not a piece of notebook paper or a Word document? Because this does not need to turn into a dissertation. This is meant to be basic, because if you make things basic, they happen more often. So insert your name, top right-hand corner, and now let's define your ideal investment. I would start with, are you looking for A properties, B properties, or C properties? Next, after we go through these, I'm going to define in my words what an A, B, and C property are so that we're all clear on the definition there. Average sales price. So this could change over time. All of these things can change over time and probably will. And that's the good thing about having a plan, is that it gives you the permission to come in and call an audible, to say, you know what, on my next property, I might go a little bit higher class, or maybe I'll go for a duplex with higher cash on cash return. You're in control. So you get to make those changes as your investment portfolio grows, but you need to know the type of property you're buying, about what's the average price. Now, you could definitely buy a $150,000 house if your average is 105, and you might sneak in a $70,000 home there because it meets a lot of the other criteria you've defined. And we'll get into that in a minute, what we call blended portfolio. I like houses built in 1955 and newer. Getting into the 1920s and 30s and 40s and houses just doesn't meet my goals, because I'm building a portfolio to possibly hand to my children. Who knows what will happen in the next 20, 30 years of my investment career, but it gives me those options. I really like newer than 1955, but there's specific areas in Memphis, Tennessee that I am really hot on, that you're only going to find houses built in 1955, unless you're lucky. Like, I just found a house that was burned to the ground. I bought the lot, scraped it, and I'm building a brand new house in the midst of a bunch of houses built in the 1950s and 60s. Those are unicorns, right? Then areas. So if you haven't watched my map video, watch that. Get with me. I'll go through it with you one-on-one and talk about the different areas. So I like Whitehaven. This is where Elvis lived in 1970s. It's just west of the airport, so home to FedEx and the big air cargo hub, largest in the Northern Hemisphere, second only to Hong Kong in the world. So imagine the number of people FedEx has employed there. Not super high-paying jobs, so a lot of renters. and is real close to that. It's just south of downtown. Hickory Hill, just east of the airport, west of Collierville, which is where FedEx has their corporate headquarters in Collierville. So you're hitting both sides of the FedEx there. Two large employers. Hickory Hill is right there in the middle. I happen to prefer the eastern side of Hickory Hill, but that's a whole different discussion. Raleigh. So this is north of town and east, closer to Bartlett. The closer to Bartlett, the better. And that's for me. You know, everybody's definition of where they want to invest is going to be different, but for me, the further east in Raleigh, the better. Cordova. I like Cordova. It's getting harder and harder to find houses there. Anything near Shelby Farms, I'm all over it. Berclair. Berclair is an area off of Summer Avenue. I have a lot of people that work with me that I rent to in that area. It's one of the reasons I like it. They're older homes built in the 50s, 60s, 70s. A lot of them are built like tanks. I can come in and with a $20,000, $30,000 renovation, have those properties in primo condition. One of the reasons I like all of these areas, if you know them street by street and you know where to invest and where to stay away from, and that's one of the values I bring to you is knowing this town inside and out, knowing where to stay away from and where to go after hot and heavy. All of these areas rent so quickly. And I mean rent while the home is under renovation. I recently did a big renovation on a property in Berclair. I think we had 35 showings, 15 people applied, and the house was not finished being renovated. The people moved in. They were so excited about moving in. They moved in before I could have the dumpster company come remove the waste dumpster. So, I mean, when you have people clamoring over a property, little bells should be going off saying, this is the type of area I want to replicate and duplicate. My investments, cash flow positive by $1, and it's still in the game. So I've got certain areas that I'll buy in, and it's not a huge cash flow, but I know that area is going to appreciate. One of the areas I love is Colonial Acres. It's East Memphis. It's close to Poplar Avenue. Watch my map video. You'll learn more about that area. But if I could have a property in that area with just $1 cash flow, it's still in the game. And I can go further into why. In Whitehaven, I want to see a couple $100 cash flow on a $100,000 property. In Cordova, maybe 180 cash flow a month on a fully renovated property. So that's number 6. For me, my investments, I want them fully renovated. That's new roof, new HVAC, hard surface floors in the high traffic areas, minimally. Everything else is pretty much cosmetic. You know, cut some bushes, trim some trees, you know, paint, light fixtures. Those things are easy. But the big ticket items for me, new roof, new HVAC, hard surface flooring in the high traffic areas. No big trees. Now, I know there's a lot of people that aren't going to like this one because, the trees are so beautiful. And I agree. You know, a nice big tree sitting under it in a hot summer day, that's pretty. So put a swing out there for the kids. That's fun. But when trees get 50, 60, 100 years old and they're on my properties, they're nothing but a nuisance. 100-year-old tree, $10,000 to remove in a backyard. You're bringing in cranes. You have 3 and 4 days of highly skilled, highly insured workers out there on your property. That's just something I stay away from. So minimally, I don't want trees overhanging my house. But ideally, if I were to buy my ideal property, it's got a little twig of a tree in the front yard. And we're going to cut that sucker down when it's 10 years old. So there's my talk about trees. No subterranean living space. So that could be a split level home. And to define a split level home for someone that's maybe newer, so you walk in the house, you go down 3 or 4 steps, you're in one area, that's subterranean. And then you go up 3 or 4 steps to the living space where the bedrooms and bathrooms normally are. For me, it's just a no-go. Basements in Memphis, Tennessee are not very common. However, you will see them. So I just don't buy homes with subterranean living area. I actually like houses that are on a conventional foundation. That's the houses you can crawl under. So you'll know because your home inspection is more expensive. That home inspector put on his jumpsuit, crawled under the house, inspected the home. I like those because you can actually manipulate plumbing and electricity easily. A monolithic slab, which is the majority of what you're going to see from me, especially homes built in 1965 and newer. The slab's there. There's no going under and adding plumbing or electricity. So through the attic is your best option. If you wanted to add a gas stove to a monolithic slab, you're going through the attic. You're not busting up a slab. On a conventional foundation, you can crawl under. Now, there's good and bad about both. So on the home inspections for every house I buy that has a crawl space, conventional foundation, the home inspector is looking for any signs of mold or decay, things like that. So that's definitely something you want to look for if you're buying a house with a crawl space. I actually like owning properties with crawl spaces. It gives you more options. Done properly, it's a great way for construction. All right. So this is not your buy box. This is my buy box, and you can create whatever you want. So let's talk about what A, B, and C means in my definition. And your definition could be different, sure. I just want to be very clear about what I'm saying on my website when I say a property is in an A neighborhood. That means there's 90% plus home ownership. Now, this isn't the only metric, but we're going to go into all of them. A B neighborhood is your Memphis average neighborhood. 50% of Memphis, believe it or not, is rentals. So average neighborhood, you're going to have 50% home ownership on that street and 50% rental. In a C neighborhood, it's going to be mostly renters. And so we have neighborhoods in Memphis that are 95% rentals. And then we have areas like the area I live in, which is 90% plus home ownership. So it's a big difference there. Your average neighborhood is going to be 50% rental, 50% homeowner. Let's look at it this way through the value of the land. What if your investment property in Memphis, Tennessee, sadly burned to the ground, and you receive a lump sum check from your insurance company to do whatever you want with? Here are your options on an A-class property. On an A-class property, you come to me, say, James, house burned to the ground. I got $120,000 from the insurance company. What do I do? My suggestion would be to scrape the lot, build something bigger, badder, newer, and sell it to a homeowner for a profit, because the area dictates that you can do that. A B neighborhood, we're going to rebuild exactly what burned down. That same 1,350 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a 1-car carport, because that's what the area dictates. That's the highest and best use of the value of that land. And the check in your hand will pay for exactly that. In a C-class area, you're going to take your money and run. And the reason is you can't rebuild that 1,050 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath house on that lot for the check you're going to get from the insurance company. And then we won't go into gap insurance and different waivers like that. Keeping it simple here. But if they gave you the $80,000 that house cost when you bought it from us, you can't rebuild for that price. It's $115,000 $115 a square foot to rebuild after scraping the lot and going through all the government red tape and all those things. So you take your money, you'd reinvest into a different property, you donate the lot to a local charitable organization. I'm not sure what these local charitable organizations do with these lots, but they'll take them. So get you a tax write-off, go buy another investment property with that check. Other things we're going to layer into this: crime. So how much crime is in an A-class neighborhood? Probably less than a C-class neighborhood. Not always, but most likely. A great place to check on that is my due diligence vault that I provide for each of you guys, or Trulia. It's the only thing I use Trulia for. Don't use Trulia much, but I use it every day for the crime map. It's a great tool. Schools, sadly, better schools in A-class neighborhoods, poor test scores in the C-class neighborhoods, and everything in between from A- to B+ and C+. A great place to get that information, greatschools.org, O-R-G. Shopping. So here's an easy one. How close is the closest Chick-fil-A? That could also be substituted in with Whole Foods. So in an A-class neighborhood, there's going to be 2 Chick-fil-A options and a Whole Foods option. In a C-class neighborhood, you have to drive some distance to get to the Chick-fil-A. So I like using big companies like this, their market studies, for my benefit. In a B-class area, you're almost always going to see a super Walmart. And that's where you're going to have the majority of your, all of your shopping, super Walmart, places like that. C-class areas and B-class areas, let's be honest here, you're going to see lots of Family Dollars, Dollar Generals. You don't see many Family Dollars in A-class neighborhoods. Parks and recreation. So for me and my family, it's important to have a nice little park that's within walking distance, little stores and ice cream shops we can walk to. Easy place to find that, Google Earth. So if you're looking at a property, put it into Google Earth. And you can spot parks, golf courses, things like that. You're not going to find a high-end golf course in most C-class areas. You're going to find multiple parks in an A-class area. So I layer all of these things in, put it all into consideration when I'm scoring what is an A, B, or C property on my website. Now that we're on the same page, this will help you define, in James's terms, what type of investor you are. Now, there's not a wrong answer here. So when people say, James, what should I invest in? My answer is it depends. Let's talk about what your end goals are, and that's where we're going next. So if your end goal is to own 300 properties in Memphis, Tennessee, you're probably going to be a C-class buyer. Most people never get there. Most of my investors own 6 properties. And I would say if you're only going to have 6 properties in your portfolio, that you should maybe look at investing towards the nicer properties, not because the renovations are better. It's the same renovation, same type of roof, same HVAC, heating and cooling, same hard surface floors. In the A-class areas, you might get granite. That's the difference. It's the type of tenant that you're attracting to the property is the reason. And I've got great tenants in C-class properties, but overwhelmingly, the few evictions that we file per year are in the B- C-class areas. Very rarely would you be evicting someone from an A-class property, a B+ property. They have more to lose. So very simply, someone that's paying $700 a month rent versus someone that's paying $1,700 a month rent, when you go to court, you have the ability to come after and garnish their wages and go and collect from them. I mean, you have more ability to collect from someone that was able to qualify for a home that was $1,700 a month than you do somebody that was $500, $700 a month. All right, so back to screen share. The next part of this is to really say, let's look at this through the eye of your tenant. Let's not think about us, the investor, so much. Let's think about the tenant. Now take a moment and say, what type of tenant do I want to attract in my property? I have a hierarchy of tenants that I like to rent to. I love my tenants in the empty nester crowd. Maybe he delivered mail and she worked at the hospital in the, checking people in, checking people out. They don't have a huge retirement. A lot of times I've bought their house that they currently live in, and they're looking for their next phase of life place to live. Too young, they've told me, to go to a nursing home. That's for sure. He plays golf every Saturday. And too old, they've told me, in their opinion, to go take a 30-year mortgage. They just want to rent a nice house from James for the next 5 to 6 years till they figure out their next phase of life. I love renting to my empty nesters. I rent a lot of houses to divorcees. So maybe husband and wife are going through a divorce. They're in a nice big 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. And after the divorce, neither can afford that big house on their own salary. So here comes mom, 2 kids, and she needs the next phase of life rental. So James, I want to rent this house from you. I'll sign a 3-year lease. It's nice. It's clean. It has a backyard. It's not an apartment, right? It's not going and living with mother. So it's a great phase of life rental. Now you're catching on to something here. I like people that are in a transition mode, a phase of life change. Maybe I just got relocated to Memphis, Tennessee to work for FedEx or St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. I've never been to Memphis. Let me rent a house from you for 2 years while I figure this place out and see if this is a place I want to put roots down and call home. Great renter right there. The workforce of America. I have lots of truck drivers. Memphis is a logistics hub, and warehouse workers, forklift drivers, warehouse managers. I love the American workforce. And a lot of, I don't know any statistics on this, but statistically, how many truck drivers, how many forklift drivers become homeowners compared to other occupations? If I was a betting man, I'd have to say it's lower. And there's a whole talk of why, in my opinion, that happens. But I supply clean and safe homes to the American workforce. That's what I tell a lot of people. James, what do you do? Well, I buy houses, I renovate them, really well, and they stand out after the renovation. But I supply houses to the working force of Memphis, Tennessee. The last guy you want to rent to is a single guy. Hey, I was one. A lot of you watching this video might have been one at one time, or you're married to one. And that one doesn't have to go into much explanation, but that's my hierarchy of who I like to rent to. Of course, we follow all guidelines of fair housing and all those things, but through the eyes of your investor, think about who is this property going to attract? Is it going to attract the warehouse worker who's been with Nike for 15 years and has a great rental history? They're living in an apartment now and they want to get into a just nicer house, a nicer little place to raise a family. So you've all worked with financial planners, I'm sure. They always have this talk with you where they say, okay, are you more prone to a lower risk investment or a higher risk investment? Or are you somewhere in the middle? So that's how it always goes when I sit down with my financial planner. And it's a good talk to have with you guys. So are you one that likes to go to the crap tables and put it all on the field, and you're that higher risk? It doesn't have to be that dramatic. Or do you want the more passive, brand new house built as a rental, 3-year lease to a naval officer? You know, those are really low risk, but you know what? They have a lower return on paper as well. The higher risk, higher reward properties are going to be in your C-class areas. A lot of people that reach out to me bought in a D-class area and they're wanting me to help them with the situation they have. And I tell them, you know, there's nothing I can do there. You bought in a really risky area. But you can always, you know, hope for that higher return on paper, but how often does it really happen? What most of my investors end up investing in is what I call a blended portfolio. If you have a plan to only own a few homes as your rental portfolio, please stay in this lower risk category. Your A properties, your B plus properties. If you are planning to build a larger portfolio, then of course you can stomach a little bit more of a risk because you'll have a larger portfolio. When you have vacancies, when you have repairs, you'll have other properties help cover those costs. A lot of my investors start out with some nicer properties, get 5 or 6 under their belt, then maybe buy a duplex in a, you know, little bit more C-class area, but higher cash on cash return. The number one time I've seen people fail is owning 3 to 5 properties, all in C-class areas with a higher risk, and just having some bad luck, just, you know, getting some bad tenants in there. So overwhelmingly, when people ask my opinion, I start with how many properties do you plan on owning and how soon do you plan on getting there? What is your plan to get there? And overwhelmingly, people that get 20 plus properties in Memphis with our company end up with a blended portfolio. Some A-class properties, some B-class properties, a few C-class properties sprinkled in here and there. Okay, so let's talk about goals. So this is the back end of your 3x5 index card. And I think this is what really makes it come to life. So first you'll define your ideal investment. Then we'll say, what's the why? What is the reason for this investment? And I'll share with you some of the most common answers I get from my investors. A lot of you guys have big incomes, and that means you're paying big income taxes. So real estate is one of the few things in the world that helps us with a retirement plan and helps us save on taxes. This is a whole nother talk that you'll hear me give in another video, especially when we do our live events. We always talk about the tax savings of owning rental properties. Owning rental properties, everything is deductible. Your travel to Memphis to look at your properties, any repairs to the property that you have to make in the future are tax deductible. The house itself is depreciable. So it's the only asset you can purchase that I know of, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that appreciates over time, but you get to depreciate this asset over 27 and a half years. So the tax savings alone is one reason that we should all invest. A lot of people tell me they want to get into real estate to replace an income. Maybe their spouse, you know, has dreams of not working anymore, and they have a income that needs to be replaced. Well, how do you replace it? Owning real estate's a great way. Maybe it's replacing a portion of your income so you don't have to work so daggum hard. Maybe you're making $200,000 a year. If you could get another $50,000 a year of income through owning real estate, it would allow you to relax a little bit as a small business owner or someone working in that corporate environment who has to push to beat their deadlines all the time. It just gives you that freedom, gives you a little wiggle room, a little elbow room, some people might say. I love this one. to teach my children and future generations the value of owning assets over liabilities. So, Dad, why don't we have a boat? Because we own that duplex. That's a great lesson for you to be showing to the next generation, for them to show to the next generation. Well, Grandpa owned 100 rental properties in Memphis, Tennessee. And that's why we're able to send you to whatever college you want to go to. That's why we're able to take the vacations we take, or whatever your why is. Why aren't we going to Hawaii this year? Because we're buying that single family home from James in Memphis for future seeds we're planning to turn into oak trees, acorns to oak tree scenario, right? So number 3 stands on its own. If that were the only reason you were investing in real estate, that would be big enough. To retire at blank. I put a blank there because everybody's got a different age they give me. I hear a lot from the younger generation to be able to retire at 50. Well, 50 doesn't sound so old to me anymore. And a lot of you guys are, past 50, guys and gals watching this video are past 50. You can fill in the blank on this one. So the ability to is kind of the key to this one. Doesn't mean you have to, but having the ability to retire at whatever age is really strong versus I have to work till I'm 65, 72, whatever the age is, because I didn't plan ahead, make investments, 15, 20 years ago. The ability to retire at 50 is what it says on my card. Now, you guys know me well enough by now. I will not be retiring at 50. I absolutely love what I do. I'd be doing this if I was independently wealthy, no questions asked. I get up every morning, jump out of bed, get to go invest in real estate. It's a lot of fun to create generational wealth. So a lot of people know the story, Grandpa made this investment and that's trickled down to allow my children a different lifestyle. Well, I know that the seeds I'm planting today will last multiple generations. Buying actual assets over the fun stuff like the boats, and hey, I like to have fun, but creating that generational wealth is one I hear over and over from my investors. So I put it on the card here for you. And then over and over again, I get this answer: an annual cash flow of $100,000 net. And this is coming from the multimillionaire to the beginner real estate investor. Overwhelmingly, I hear that number. Well, let's talk about that. 10 great properties, debt-free, easily will net you $100,000. That is so easy to do. So we know it's 20% down payment currently. Those things could change in the near future with all of the changes happening in our economy and country. But only 20% down and closing costs buys a property. So you could acquire 10 properties in 10 years with a modest, above average income, modestly above average income, and take all of that cash flow plus a personal investment from you and your family monthly to reduce the debt property by property, killing them off one at a time, and own 10 properties by retirement. Almost everyone watching this video, you wouldn't be watching this video, you wouldn't have gotten to minute whatever we're on now, we're deep into the video now, if you weren't in that category. Owning 10 properties outright would be a great goal for anybody to put on their card, and knowing that they can surpass a goal. Everybody knows we can surpass these goals, right? But if you haven't gone as far as to take a little index card, jot down with your spouse, by the way, if you're married, this is powerful. This is a powerful tool to get some clarity, to get some vision. Share it with me and my team. That way we know what page you're on and how we can best serve you. Reach out to the team, schedule a one-on-one call with me and Stephanie. I'd love to talk to you on the phone, set up a Zoom call so we can have a one-on-one conversation. Set your goals. Come see me in October 2nd and 3rd. Go to turnkeyinvest.com to learn more about our big event. I'd love to see you here in May where we would do this exercise together. Thanks and have a great day.